I still remember the exact moment I realized I'd been caught. Not because he raised his voice, not because the police showed up, not because anyone said a single word. It was the way Gerald looked at me across that conference table. Not angry, not surprised, just patient. Like a man who'd been sitting in a room waiting for you to walk through the door, and had been for a very long time. I'd stolen $14,300 from that man over 8 months. I told myself 100 different stories about why it was okay. None of those stories prepared me for what came next. Marsh Supply Co. had been in business for 31 years when I joined. Hardware distribution. Unglamorous, steady. Gerald's father had built it from a single loading dock in rural Ohio, and Gerald had turned it into a regional operation with 12 employees and a solid reputation. I was hired as inventory manager. Respectable title, decent salary. Not enough. That's what I told myself. Not enough. I was 3 years into a mountain of debt I'd racked up in my mid-20s. Medical bills from a surgery I hadn't planned for, a lease I couldn't break, a life that looked fine from the outside and was quietly caving in on itself from within. So I started small. $100 here from petty cash, an invoice inflated by $40, the difference pocketed before it hit accounts. I told myself I'd pay it back. I had a number in my head, a date, a plan. Renee worked one office down from mine. She processed the invoices I approved. She was sharp, sharper than I gave her credit for. I noticed her pause sometimes when she cross-referenced supplier figures. Noticed her glance up at me. I smiled. She looked away. I kept going. The first sign, and I didn't read it as a sign, not then, came on a Tuesday in March. Gerald stopped by my office door around 4 in the afternoon. Didn't knock, didn't say anything for a second. Just stood there, with one hand on the frame, looking at me. Then he said, "You doing okay, Connor?" I said I was fine. He nodded, slow, like he was confirming something he already suspected. "Good," he said, and walked away. That was it. That was the whole conversation. I thought nothing of it. Gerald was a man of few words, always had been. I chalked it up to him being Gerald. But that night, driving home, the question sat with me a little longer than it should have. You doing okay? Not good work this week. Not I had a question about the Kellerman account. Just, are you okay? I turned up the radio. I stopped thinking about it. By April, I was getting sloppy. Not stupid, I thought, but sloppy. I'd started doubling the adjustments. 100 had become 250. I rationalized it the way people rationalize things when they've already crossed a line. The hard part was behind me, I told myself. I'd done the scary thing. Scaling it was just logistics. Then Renee knocked on my office door one afternoon and asked if I had a minute. She sat down, placed a printed invoice on my desk, turned it so it faced me. I ran the supplier totals against last quarter, she said. There's a discrepancy on the Hendricks account, about $800 off over 3 months. I looked at the paper, didn't let my expression move. $800. That was mine. Probably a rounding error in their billing system, I said. I'll reach out to them. Renee didn't say anything for a moment. She looked at the invoice, then at me. Okay, she said, and took the paper back. She didn't seem satisfied, but she left. I sat very still for a long time after she was gone. It was a Thursday in late May. I came in early. I usually did. It made me look responsible. And the conference room door was closed. That was unusual. Gerald arrived at 8. It was 7:40. I heard voices inside. 2 of them. I recognized Gerald's measured cadence, and then a sharper one, his brother Marcus. I'd met Marcus twice at company events. He had the warmth of a winter parking lot. I couldn't make out words, but I heard my name. Connor. Said once, clearly. Then the conversation dropped back to murmurs. I walked past, made coffee, sat at my desk, stared at my monitor. I told myself I'd misheard, that my name was common enough, that it meant nothing. Marcus left at 8:15 without stopping by my office. He didn't usually. Gerald came out at 8:30, poured himself coffee, and said good morning to Renee. Said it to me too when he passed. Normal. Completely normal. I went to the bathroom and stood over the sink for 3 minutes. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that Gerald had been keeping a ledger. Not digital, not in any system I could access. A physical ledger, handwritten, locked in the bottom drawer of his desk at home. Every discrepancy, every inflated invoice, every date, the supplier accounts I'd adjusted, the petty cash gaps I'd smoothed over with explanations that almost held together. He'd started it in January, 5 months before that Thursday morning, 5 months before I ever heard my name through that conference room door. Renee had come to him quietly in February, just 2 line items she couldn't reconcile. She'd been apologetic, almost. Told him it was probably nothing. Gerald had thanked her. Told her to say nothing to anyone. Then he'd gone home that night and opened a fresh ledger page. His brother Marcus had found out in April. Had pushed for immediate termination. Possible prosecution. Gerald had said, not yet. Marcus had asked why. Gerald had said, I want to understand it first. June came. I started watching for things I hadn't watched for before. Did Gerald hold eye contact a second longer than usual? Was Renee avoiding my section of the building? Had the supply audits always been scheduled this frequently, or was that new? I started building exits in my head. Quit and move before anything surfaces. Fabricate a job offer. Say it's family. Say it's opportunity. Leave clean. But every time I sat in that parking lot at the end of the day, the amount I'd taken felt like a weight I'd physically carry out with me. $14,000. I'd paid off maybe a third of my original debt. The rest had found ways to grow. I remember sitting in my car one evening in early June, watching the lights in Gerald's office. He was still there at 6:30. Unusual. The light didn't move, didn't flicker, just burned steadily behind a frosted window. I drove home and barely slept. The Tuesday after the 4th of July holiday, Marcus Blaine walked into the building at 9 a.m. He didn't usually come in on Tuesdays, or any weekday really. He worked remotely, reviewed quarterly numbers, and showed up at the annual review. He shook hands with 2 of the floor guys, said good morning to the receptionist, then he walked straight into Gerald's office and closed the door. I watched this from across the floor. Renee was at her desk. She glanced at the closed door, then at me. Just for a second. 1 second. Then she looked back at her screen. That 1 second was enough. I felt it move through me like cold water. She knew, or suspected, or had been told to say nothing. I couldn't tell which was worse. I sat at my desk for 40 minutes without typing a single real word. I opened a supplier email, closed it. Opened the invoice system, closed it. At 10:15, Gerald's door opened. He walked out alone. Marcus stayed inside. Gerald came toward my office, knocked once on the open door, said, Connor, can you come to the conference room at 2? Not a question. Of course, I said. He nodded, walked back to his office, closed the door again. I had 4 hours. I didn't run. I want to be clear about that. I've asked myself since then whether I should have, and the honest answer is, I don't think I could have. Something about Gerald's knock, something about the way he'd said it, not threatening, not cold, just inevitable. I walked into that conference room at 2 o'clock. Gerald was already seated. Marcus stood near the window. Between them on the table, a leather-bound ledger, open. I sat down. Gerald looked at me for a long moment before he spoke. That patience again, that steady, unhurried patience. Connor, he said, I'm not going to walk you through all of this. You know what it is. I looked at the ledger. I saw my name. I saw dates I recognized, numbers I recognized. I didn't say anything. 8 months, he said. $14,340. I have every one. Marcus shifted near the window. I could feel how badly he wanted to speak. I looked at Gerald. I wanted to explain. I wanted to tell him about the debt, the surgery, the spiral, all the things I told myself. But sitting across from him, with that ledger between us, every story I'd rehearsed turned to ash. I'm sorry, I said. He looked at me. I know, he said. And he sounded like he meant it. Not absolution. Just acknowledgement. Like a doctor confirming a diagnosis.
Gerald had made a decision. Over Marcus's objection, I learned later, not to involve the police. Not immediately. He told me I would resign. I would sign a formal repayment agreement for the full amount, interest included, monthly payments structured over 3 years, and forcible by contract. If I missed a payment, if I skipped town, if I disputed it, Marcus would file charges the same afternoon. I signed. He handed me a box for my things and gave me 20 minutes. Renee was at her desk when I came out. She didn't look up. I think she was trying to give me the dignity of not being watched. I walked past her, picked up the box, took the things off my desk that were actually mine. Gerald was in the lobby when I came out. He held the front door open. I walked through it. He let it close behind me. I sat in my car for 15 minutes before I could drive.
3 months after I left Marsh Supply Co., a plain white envelope arrived at my apartment. No return address. My name handwritten on the front in an unfamiliar script. Inside, a single index card. 1 line. No signature. It read, I knew by December. I let you keep going. I'm still not sure why. G. December. I'd started in November. He had known within the first month. He'd let me continue for 7 more. I sat with that card for a long time. I still don't fully understand what he was doing. Whether he was gathering evidence, giving me rope, waiting for me to stop on my own, trying to understand something about people that he hadn't figured out yet. Maybe all of those things. I make my monthly payment on the 15th. I haven't missed one. The card is still on my kitchen table. I don't know why I keep it there. Maybe I'm still trying to understand it too.